Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fandoms Assemble. We're breaking down content from all your favorite fandoms, from the Marvel Universe to Harry Potter and the wider Wizarding World, Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Game of Thrones. We got them all, and whatever else this golden age of IP decides to throw at us next. My name's Steve Oborn Jr., and I'll be your host as we embark on this journey through the magic of modern-day media. I'd like to take a moment to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending a portion of your day with me and coming back and listening again. I hope you find this pod to be both entertaining and informative, but most importantly, a satisfying resource for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. If you're like me, you run to the Reddit boards and Twitter feeds after that latest episode drops, and you're already Googling Easter eggs on the ride home from the movie theater. I'm here to tell you that that's okay. There's others of us out there. We're going to dive deep into the analysis of all this, and I hope that Fandoms Assemble can be the arena where all that beautiful obsession can live and grow. Let's get to it. This episode of Fandoms Assemble will be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 4, The World is Watching. But before we get into Episode 4, a quick recap of what we saw in Episode 3. We have Karli Morgenthau blowing up a GRC supply depot, while Bucky and Sam are breaking Zemo out of prison and are on the hunt for who the hell is creating the super soldier serum. Sam, Bucky, Zemo head to Madripoor and meet up with Sharon Carter, where they find and kill Wilfred Nagel, the creator of the super soldier serum. While they're there, they track Karli Morgenthau to Latvia, where she is mourning the death of Doña Medina, figure in the Riga community there in Latvia, at which time Bucky Barnes comes face to face with Ayo of the Dora Milaje of Wakanda. Speaking of Wakanda, that's where we're going to open up Episode 4 with a flashback 6 years ago to Ayo of the Dora Milaje testing Bucky Barnes to see if he is truly the Winter Soldier still or not. They have gone through their reprogramming. Whatever combination of Shori science and ancient Wakanda rituals took place in Bucky removing the Winter Soldier from his head. But we see here that it's successful. Ayo goes through the trigger words. Bucky he starts having flashbacks and he's sobbing. But when she's finished, she says, Bucky, you're free. You're finally free. You passed the test. You're free of the Winter Soldier. You're free of all the horrors that you've committed in your past. That'll never happen again. We have been successful in removing Hydra's influence over you, and you can now live your life a free man. That being said, we take a hard cut back to Latvia, where Ayo is now standing in front of him saying, what the hell are you doing? Zemo killed King T'Chaka. He tried to frame you in the murder of King T'Chaka. He broke apart the Avengers. He tried to ruin the world. To which Bucky says, listen, he's a means to an end. It's the first time we've heard him speak in Wakanda's native language. It shows, listen, I'm a part of your culture. I know what I'm doing. You're calling me the White Wolf. I am your protector. I love Wakanda. And I want to see this guy behind bars more than you do, but we need him. Ayo gives him 8 hours, calls him White Wolf, and turns and leaves. Back inside, we see Bucky immediately debrief Sam and Zemo on the fact that Wakanda's here. They're here for Zemo, and listen, man, you're in trouble. The Dora Milaje could bust in any second and take you out of here. And there's not really a damn thing we could do about it because they'll beat us up. Checking up on his news of the day, Bucky then tells Sam that Karli bombed a GRC supply depot in Lithuania, that she apparently plans to do more unless her list of demands is met. Karli, what are you doing? This is not the way to do things. You're out there for all the right reasons. You just need to let this play out. You could push against the government. You could be a revolutionary, but peacefully. You don't need to be killing people. And that's what Dovich tried to tell her at the end of that episode. And she's going to lose the Flag Smashers, man. This is not the way they want to go about doing things, but more on that in a minute. Zemo then goes into another opportunity to tirade against super soldiers and says that anyone with the super soldier blood is naturally going to be a supremacist. They're going to think they're better than everyone and that they have the authority to rule over non-super soldiers. He says that, listen, that's what happened with Hydra. That's what happened with the Nazis. That's what happened with the Avengers. And Sam says, hey, those are our friends, to which Bucky comically says, the Avengers, not the Nazis. And Zemo then says that all super soldiers are bound for corruption, in which we get a nice nod to my boy Steve Rogers, where they said, listen, Bucky says, listen, the super soldier serum never corrupted Steve. And Zemo says, yes, but there's never been another Steve Rogers, has there? No, there has not. And John Walker certainly is not Steve Rogers. And holy shit, will we find that out in this episode. But now let's move the plot along. There's a quick conversation about Sam's aunt and what they did for her when she passed away because she was such a pillar in the community. And listen, if Doña Medina is the same kind of woman, maybe they'll be doing the same thing for her here in Latvia. So their plan is to go out and find where Doña Medina's funeral is being held. But before we get there, as I said, a quick flash to Karli and the Flag Smashers sitting in some bombed out building in Latvia listening to the news. The Flag Smashers hate that she blew up the GRC, and it's evident in her face. And as a result of her doing that, of taking such violent action in the name of their movement, the world governments are going in hyperspeed to bring things back to the way they were. Listen, little girl, we're not going to let you stir up some shit and get into this one world, no borders idea. Enter the Patch Act. Now, I'm just going to put a very, very large pin in this for our later segments, the Patch Act. Moving on. Cut over to Bucky, Sam, and Zemo at Doña Medina's refugee shelter, where Sam and Bucky are walking around trying to interrogate and question everyone in the building about who Doña Medina was, what she did, where she could be, but no one's talking. We see Flag Smasher logos everywhere, put on the back of computers, hung on walls. And listen, the Flag Smashers are helping these people eat. They're giving them medicine they need. There's no way that they're going to talk to two Americans walking in the door who everyone recognizes as Avengers. One guy outwardly says he knows who Sam is, and he highlights all the times that the GRC has lied to them. They promised us supplies. They promised us teachers. They promised all these things, and they're not delivering. Why? Because they're organized crime. But they haven't said that in the show yet. I don't even know if that's true. But the GRC are clearly a bunch of bullshitters, and they're not doing the right thing by these refugees because they don't really care about the state of the world. They just need everything to fall back in place so that they can retain their power, whoever the power belongs to there. Zemo, being the ever-present manipulator, goes full Varys the Spider, Master of Whispers, and speaks with the children on where Doña Medina's funeral is. A touching moment referencing his son and how much he loved Turkish delights. He gives candy to the kids, who then spill their guts on where Doña Medina's funeral is and when it's being held. A quick debrief back at the apartment where Sam talks about sympathizing for the Flag Smasher cause and the people who were kicked out of their homes. He says, listen, I just have a feeling that Karli Morgenthau is different. Her aims are different than everyone else we've ever fought. She's fighting for the right reasons. Before Zemo scoffs and says, okay, well, listen, the funeral's this afternoon, but I'm not telling you where or when, because he needs to hold his leverage that as soon as they find out where Karli's going to be, that they're not going to immediately turn him over to the Wakandans. Bucky's pissed at this and threatens to rip Zemo's head off his shoulders before Sam stops him. Then Sam puts in a call to Sharon and asks him to keep an eye out on the refugee camp. This also sets up for him to ask Sharon to keep an eye on John Walker later in the episode, but more on that later. Sharon tells him that indeed the power broker is pissed and he'll be coming for Karli because she killed Wilfred Nagel. Back over to Karli and her fellow Flag Smasher, where they're at his father's cemetery plot picking up the squirreled away doses of super soldier serum. Now, a quick tangent before I move on. They made a point to tell us that Nagel made 20 doses of super soldier serum, and we know that there are 8 Flag Smashers. That should leave 12 additional doses of super soldier serum in that bag, and there are just simply not 12 doses in there. Later on, we also see them get smashed, and there are clearly not 12 doses there. So has Karli already given out more super soldier serum? It doesn't appear so. As this episode goes on, she regrets waiting so long to grow her army. So where the hell are they? Were there some in Nagel's lab that she wasn't able to steal and he was lying? Does the power broker already have some and he wants the rest? Doesn't appear to be the case, because then he'd have his hands on super soldiers and he wouldn't be so desperately trying to kill her for the serum. But where are the missing doses? Did they just not feel like making 12 glass vials to put in that bag? It's not the kind of thing that Marvel generally misses. Anyway, the conversation goes on between Karli and her fellow Flag Smasher, where he discusses his childhood and his grandfather, whose plot they're at, And he tells her how he used to be a huge Captain America fan growing up. His father fought the Nazis. Naturally, Cap would be a hero in World War II around the world. And then we get a really touching moment of what Karli means to the Flag Smasher movement and all these refugees, where he says, I never envisioned that I'd see another Captain America until you came along. Like, wow, man. They are seeing her as a Steve Rogers-like character. That she is inherently good and she has these superpowers to fight for what they truly need. He says that she's a Captain America that looks like them and understands their cause. And that's really powerful and almost makes you start rooting for the Flag Smashers when besides Bucky and Sam, the people fighting against the Flag Smasher movement are John Walker and the GRC. Karli then goes into how she doesn't want to be Captain America. She doesn't want to be that kind of symbol. That the shield of Captain America is an outdated symbol to everyone and an homage to everyone in the world who's been forgotten. And that's really sad as a Cap fan who knows Steve Rogers' story, that he came from nothing and what a great person he was in addition to being a super soldier and Captain America. But she's on the same page with Sam in wanting the shield destroyed. And now that that's the second reference, we'll see if that actually happens. For now, however, they plan to head to Mama Donia's funeral, and we're going to have a meet between our guys and Karli Morgenthau at some point in the next few minutes. But before we get there, enter this giant a-hole John Walker and his pal Lamar Hoskins, a.k.a. Battlestar, where they confront Sam, Bucky, and Zemo in the streets of Latvia. They question him on how the hell they broke him out, to which Bucky ribs him, hey, he technically did it himself, so my hands are clean. However, they are still harboring one of the most wanted fugitives in the world at the moment. And John Walker's starting to bark orders. Sam says, listen, man, you better chill out before we kick your ass. He says, get weird, but that's really what he meant. And Zemo says, yeah, man, calm down. I know exactly where Karli is. Let me go talk to this little girl and I'll find out. She brings him to a building, and when they arrive, Sam says, listen, I want to go talk to her myself. I'm a trauma therapist dealing with soldiers. I know exactly how she feels. I'll be able to talk her down. Meanwhile, John Walker, the anti-Steve Rogers, just wants to go in there and start throwing his shield around. But thankfully, the voice of reason here, Lamar Hoskins, says, listen, I think if Sam has the opportunity to talk her down, that we should go that route first before we start punching our way out of this. And as we go inside, we even see the Big Brother GRC posters everywhere in this place of Flag Smasher mourning, where they're talking about them being one world and one family. We still have that overwhelming presence plastered all over the walls. John Walker then cuffs Zemo to some structure in the building and says, listen, Sam, I'll give you 10 minutes before I start coming in there and throwing my hands around. Once inside, we see that they are indeed in the middle of Mama Donia's funeral service, and Karli Morgenthau is giving a touching speech about how she had no family, no friends, no mom, sisters, uncles, brothers, cousins, but that Mama Donia saved her life, loved her, and was her one and true family. She then sees Sam Wilson in the rafters and immediately starts a transition towards her Flag Smasher PR play. I don't mean that in any kind of disparaging way to Karli or the Flag Smasher movement at this point. I'm starting to lean towards Sam's side about how they're doing the right thing, less, blowing up a building. But there was definitely a clear heel turn in Karli's speech about family and love to one people, one world, Flag Smasher rhetoric. Before Sam has a chance, we cut back to the room where John Walker, Bucky, Zemo, and Hoskins are waiting, and it's like John Walker's on coke or something. He's just pacing the room, gritting his teeth that he can't stand, that he can't go in there and enact violence on Karli Morgenthau. But then Sam and Karli get to talking, and man, is this guy good. I wish we would have been able to see more with Sam and Steve helping soldiers who had returned from war, or some scene where Sam was coaching Bucky through his post-Winter Soldier life, but we haven't gotten that yet. We see that he's actually getting through with her. He's good, man. He's Steve Rogers. He relates to her. He's making sense. And I got a feeling that Karli Morgenthau was starting to turn towards his point of view and was going to de-escalate the war against the GRC. But then again, cut to the room where John Walker is sitting there absolutely snarling, "Don't patronize me," when Bucky's trying to calm him down and saying, "Hey, let Sam do his work." And here is where it cuts, that he is so envious of not being Steve Rogers, the super soldier, that it's so easy for Bucky to just sit around and let Karli move about the world when he has super soldier serum running through his veins. He's so freaking jealous. And he says, "Listen, your partner's in there with no backup and he's going to be killed because super soldiers are bad and evil and we need to be worried about them." But then we get a shot of Sam doing the complete opposite with Karli, getting her to realize that, hey, you don't need to do this with violence. I'm with you. I understand how people can be oppressed and the terrible things that the world has done to everyone who was still here for those 5 years during the blip. But listen, are you going to grow your army? Are you going to smash the serum? No, I'm not going to smash the serum because the people in the GRC deserve to die. Wait, what? I thought you were peaceful. So he's talking her through these ethical dilemmas. He's getting her to realize that, yeah, I don't need to do this with violence. And then John Walker kicks in the door and blows the entire thing up. Karli bails. We see Zemo broke out of his handcuffs. Karli's on the run. Sam and Bucky can't find her. Zemo finds her in what looks like is the basement and starts shooting. He clips her with one and she's pinned down when he sees the super soldier serum on the ground. He picks one up and says, "Is this what I think it is?" And then he starts smashing. He gets all the vials except for one. Again, there are not 12 vials on the floor here, so where are the rest of them? When comes flying the shield, knocks him out, and John Walker picks up a vial of super soldier serum and puts it in his pocket. I'm letting dead air ride here because I am so enraged at John Walker. I hate this guy. And now he's going to be a freaking super soldier. I can't. I just can't. He's not Steve Rogers. The super soldier serum only enhances the person, as Hoskins will tell him in a minute. It brings out the good and the bad, as Erskine told Steve in the first Avenger. The Red Skull became even more of a homicidal lunatic. Steve Rogers became even more a symbol of what is good and right. There's absolutely no way that this psychopath John Walker should be allowed to be a super soldier. Outside, we see Karli meeting back up with Dovich and the other Flag Smasher, where she regrets not using the serum to its full potential and recruiting more people to her army since all the vials are now smashed, and says, "Listen, we got to get Sam Wilson on our side, and then we got to go kill John Walker, Captain America." The power broker then texts her in light of them saying that the serums were all smashed and says, "Listen, I need those now smashed serums or I'm going to kill you." Now hop over back to Zemo's apartment where the deterioration of John Walker begins. Sam Wilson is on the phone with Sharon Carter and says, "Listen, I know I was telling you to keep an eye on the refugee camp, but you need to gear those satellites towards watching John Walker." Zemo then asks Sam about the serum and says, "Listen, if you had the opportunity, would you take it?" Sam immediately says, "No, I have no desire to be a super soldier. I do just fine on my own. Steve was the only one who was worthy of the super soldier serum, essentially, and there's absolutely no way that if he was offered it, he would ever take it." And Sam's starting to feel Karli Morgenthau's cause. He starts questioning Zemo, saying, "What do you mean that their super soldiers can't be allowed to survive? You're saying they're gods and they can't be allowed to exist, but saying something's not allowed to exist is exactly how a god thinks." And he sympathizes with her 110%. He knows what it feels to be oppressed. And he says, "Listen, how would you feel? These people were previously kept out of these countries by barbed wire, and then everyone came together, the entire world came together to rebuild in the light of losing half of the population of the universe, half of their loved ones. Everyone came together as a family, and now everyone who was bad, who was blipped back, is now reinstituting the same shackles on these poor destitute people that they had on them before and that they were free of for 5 years. Of course they're going to fight back. Bucky then starts saying how he's crazy and he knows crazy and John Walker is crazy when John Walker comes in and starts making demands. Now, my favorite line maybe ever in the MCU, Sam says, listen, dude, shield or no shield, the only thing you're running in here is your mouth. I love it. Again, dude, you're not an Avenger. You're in here with a super soldier and Sam Wilson, the Falcon, an Avenger, and we could end you if we wanted to. We are not under your authority. I am a contractor. I'm not an enlisted member of the service. Bucky is no longer an enlisted member of the service. And just the fact that you're Captain America means absolutely nothing. People are spitting in your face. You do not have the same authority as the leader of the Avengers did. How does John Walker respond? The same way any douche would respond. He puts down the shield and says, do you want to fight about it? When the Dora Milaje come in, and he tries the same BS. Hi, I'm John Walker, Captain America. Steve Rogers never called himself Captain America. He introduced himself as Steve Rogers, even on the battlefield to other Avengers. But this idiot needs to mention at every possible outcome that he is Captain America. Call back to Tywin Lannister saying, a king who needs to say he's a king is no king at all. John Walker, you're not Captain America if you need to tell people that you're Captain America. He then tries to influence the Dora Milaje saying, you have no jurisdiction in Latvia. Well, listen, dude, the U.S. has no jurisdiction in Latvia either. You're here under the same pretenses that they are, that you feel you can just go wherever you want and enact your authority. My God, is that a larger commentary on the United States? Anyway, to which the Doras say, the Dora Milaje have jurisdiction wherever we find ourselves to be. I will kill you if you stand in my way. Sam and Bucky tried to tell him, man. They say, hey, you might want to try fighting Bucky before a super soldier, before you ever try to tangle with the Dora Milaje. He doesn't listen. He puts his hands on one of them. And then what a holy beatdown they provide to John Walker and Hoskins. In the midst, eventually Sam and Bucky do intervene and they try to de-escalate the situation where Io deactivates Bucky's arm and says, Bast damn you, James. Bast being the Panther god of Wakanda. And while she clearly allowed Bucky 8 hours with Zemo, he is now actively impeding their ability to bring King T'Chaka's killer to justice, and she's not having any of that. The other Dora, after having John Walker on his ass, then tries to pick up the shield and steal it. And holy crap, that's hilarious. How more emasculated and worthless could John Walker feel after getting his ass kicked by super soldiers and then having women who weren't even super soldiers, just really good fighters, come in and lay the same kind of beatdown on him? And Walker is shook. He says at the end to Hoskins, when Hoskins is picking him off the ground, listen, man, they weren't even super soldiers. He is so jealous. He is so emotionally destitute that he is not a super soldier, and now he has the serum in his pocket. One quick line I had to mention where Sam references Zemo as El Chapo for breaking out through a hole in the bathroom. Before we're back with Walker and Hoskins discussing the serum, John Walker starts by signing autographs for the people in the mall. He's the celebrity of Captain America, but he is in no way the fighter that Captain America was. And then we have a tender moment between Walker and Hoskins where he talks about when he signs autographs, he puts a little Battlestar logo next to his name. And me highlighting this tender moment is a recall to something I always say with my wife, where we point out the tender moments because naturally, directly after the tender moment between two characters, one of them almost always dies. But before we get there, Hoskins recalls Dr. Erskine's sentiments that power just makes a person more of themselves. He says, hell yes, I would take the super soldier serum if offered it. But look, Karli Morgenthau is more of the person she is. Steve Rogers became even greater than he was. But it only amplifies what's inside. He does not speak to John Walker's character, to his heart, when Walker asks, well, what about me? He talks about his military record, his 3 medals of honor. They talk about how John Walker never did the wrong thing on the battlefield, that he always made the right decision in high pressure situations, i.e., he is not a great man. He is a great soldier. Exactly what Erskine didn't want for the serum. Walker then highlights, yeah, those medals of honors are great. They're 3 reminders of the worst day of his life, where he had to do things that didn't feel right at all in Afghanistan to earn them. And this just further highlights that this man already exists in the gray, being an elite soldier, being the highest scoring athlete and brain in the military means absolutely nothing when it comes to the serum, because it's going to amplify your character. And if you were in Afghanistan and you were already doing things that were questionable, you are not Steve Rogers. Steve Rogers never did. He would jump on a grenade. He would crash a plane into the ice. He went with a broken shield and new weapon to face Thanos' army. He is not the guy who would cut corners and do something unethical to win a fight. And John Walker is 1001% certainly not Steve Rogers. But by the end of it, it is clear that John Walker is convinced that, hey, I wouldn't have lost all my men in Afghanistan that day if I had this serum. I would be an overall better Captain America. He is so warped by this idea of becoming a super soldier that he doesn't care any of the other ramifications of it. He feels that he deserves to be a super soldier. We then find ourselves on the phone with Karli and Sam's sister, Sarah, where she's looking to find out where Sam is. In pursuit of that, she threatens Sarah and says, listen, I don't want to have to do anything to your children, but I know exactly where to find you if I need you. But what I need now is to know where your brother is and whether or not he's working for John Walker, and do I have to kill him? Following their conversation, Sarah immediately calls Sam, who tells her to hide, take the kids, only paying cash, go on the run, and he goes to find Karli Morgenthau. We see him roll up on Karli with Bucky in full Falcon regalia, ready for a fight, where Karli says, listen, man, of course I would never hurt anybody. That's not my deal. I like you. I want to trust you. I want you to work with me. And if you don't want to work with me, then just leave me the hell alone. It's not worth it to kill you. It's not going to further the Flag Smasher cause at all by killing you. And while she's talking, Sam gets a bug in his ear from Sharon Carter saying, listen, John Walker's on the move and you got to go. As they break, there's some back and forth fighting with Karli, and we find ourselves at the building where John Walker is ready to attack the Flag Smashers. Quick cut to John and Lamar Hoskins taking the door of said building, and the two of them get immediately separated, with us seeing Lamar getting dragged away by one of the Flag Smashers. Now here's where the trouble comes in, folks. We see John Walker take a run and blast right through the door, similar to what we saw from Steve Rogers in Captain America and the Winter Soldier. That was his signature move, okay? Once he's through the door, we see him stop and listen to movements. Now, I don't know, do super soldiers have super hearing as well? But then we see him fight against the first wave of Flag Smashers, where he sinks the shield 6 inches deep into the wall. As he's fighting, we get another shot of Bucky chasing down Karli as they're running towards John Walker, before we come back to John still fighting the same Flag Smasher. And if you didn't get the hint already, between smashing the door and throwing the shield, John takes the rifle and bends it right in half. Sam Wilson is with him at this point, and okay, if all the buildup leading to this scene didn't do it for you, all of John's actions in this fight didn't do it for you, Sam helpfully says, what did you do? But now here we find ourselves in the big fight between the Flag Smashers and the U.S. superheroes that we've been waiting for this entire show. Sam, Bucky, and John Walker fighting against Karli and a couple of her Flag Smashers. And all would have been fine. But we get a shot of Lamar Hoskins breaking the ropes, and Lamar Hoskins is the only guy who's just in there dressed like a normal guy with no superpowers. The other only person in there without superpowers is Sam Wilson, but he's holding his own because he's got the Falcon, Stark Tech armor on. After a few minutes of fighting, we could see Sam's all right. The super soldiers obviously are all fine, but Lamar is clearly gassed. And with John Walker pinned down and Karli going for a kill shot, Lamar jumps in his way and gets punched into a column, falls down to the ground, dead. Now, I've had a few days to digest this scene, and I've tried to think of it. I know I've been hard on John Walker throughout this podcast, but I've tried to put myself in John's shoes here. He's got really only one friend and one person to share the burden of being Captain America with. We haven't seen his wife or his girlfriend since the beginning of the second episode, and clearly they've been friends since high school. They served in the military together. They've been together at the hip since they were 18 years old. But while I try to put myself in the shoes of someone in that position, there already was someone in that position, and his name was Steve Rogers. And if they were going to resurrect the mantle of Captain America, they should have trusted Steve Rogers to choose who would be able to fill those shoes. Therefore, my conclusion still is the same as it was in the seconds where I sat gaped-mouthed at the end of this episode, that what happens next is completely unacceptable. John snaps. He jumps out the window and does the shield to the ground land that Steve made famous, and he finds the closest flag smasher he could see and chases him through the streets. Now, the flag smasher that he finds is the same one we saw with Karli at the cemetery when she picked up the hidden vials of super soldier serum, who gave us, again, tender moment, folks, gave us the tender moment of talking about his grandfather and how much he admired Captain America and how much he never thought someone could live up to the goodness of Captain America until he found Karli. And here is the current version of Captain America standing over him with a shield, beating him to death. While he didn't go for the head, there is absolutely no way that John Walker did not cut this guy in half with this shield. And when I tell you I was disgusted, this is my favorite superhero. I'm sitting here with a Captain America Lego figurine and a Captain America water bottle, and I got a Captain America poster hanging behind me. This is supposed to be the epitome of what a good person is. He's Captain America. He never does anything wrong. And now I'll direct you to the title of the episode, The World is Watching, which is a direct callback to Black Panther 1 when T'Challa finally catches Claw after the car chase through South Korea. And with claws raised, he's ready to kill this guy in the middle of the street. And the Dora Milaje say, "Your Highness, the world is watching," and everyone is standing with their phone out. The World is Watching is the title of this episode, and in an exact mirror of that scene, we have John Walker standing there, blood dripping off the shield, as everyone in Riga, Latvia is standing there with their phones out, recording the aftermath of this murder. I still don't have a lot to say on this. It was shocking. It was exceptionally bloody for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I really hope Sam is carrying the shield by the end of this series, because John Walker lived up to my take from episode 3. I asked, is John Walker going to go full villain, or is he going to get the mantle taken from him or pass it on peacefully because he gets in some incompetent situation? But no, it's clear John Walker went full villain, full murderer, and now that he's a super soldier, he's just unhinged. I'm sickened at the fact that the U.S. government put the shield on this guy, and it just makes you miss Steve Rogers even more in this franchise. However, we will go into John Walker more in this week's episode of Fandom Academy, but for now, you know the Fandoms Assemble's goal is to be the number one source on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. To honor that promise, we can't just give you a boring old breakdown of the episode. We got to give you some analysis. We got to give you some things to think about. So here are the top 5 questions from episode 4 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, The World is Watching. Question number 1. Are they going to be able to get Karli Morgenthau to turn, or is she truly going to go off the deep end? At the end of episode 3, you would have said it's clear. She's going to go off the deep end. She's starting to kill people. She's starting to slowly turn into Daenerys Targaryen, who started with burning a slave master here, burning someone else there. and by the end of the series went down to burn all of King's Landing and everyone inside of it. Is Karli Morgenthau gonna go full crazy, or is Sam gonna be able to reach her like he was starting to reach her after Doña Medina's funeral, and she's gonna be able to convert into some kind of hero in the Marvel Universe moving forward? We hear from her pal, who unfortunately was just cut in half by Captain America, that he sees her as a Captain America figure, and she's a Captain America that looks like the people who she serves and understands their troubles, etc., etc. So is Karli going to be able to convert to a hero, similar to how Wanda and Quicksilver were able to join the Avengers after they were the primary villains in a series? I don't know, but I like this actress. She did well in the Solo movie as well, playing basically the same kind of character. And I think they've done a well enough job at setting her up as a villain, but a villain with an altruistic purpose to make that conversion fairly easy. Question number 2, also related to Flag Smashers. What happens with the Patch Act, and is the GRC going to play a bigger role in these last 2 episodes and in the MCU movies at large? As we heard while the Flag Smashers were sitting in that blown out building, Karli's actions by blowing up the GRC supply depot has accelerated the world's governments into restoring the status quo pre-blip and quickly redrawing those lines with a big black marker that Karli has been trying so hard to blur. In particular with this question, I'd like to study the Patch Act. We talked in episode 3 about how I'd love nothing more than the power broker to be Wolverine. Now in episode 3, we saw the Princess Bar in Madripoor, and there's a story from the X-Men comics that centers around Logan, real name James Howlett, and his efforts to go off the grid in Madripoor under the alias Patch, a nickname brought on by the eye patch he wore. So now we have Madripoor, we have the Princess Bar, we have the red and blue X outside the GRC supply depot, and now the GRC has organized the world's governments into creating the Patch Act. We also have speculation that the GRC and the Power Broker are one. Patch Act, Power Broker, Wolverine as the Power Broker confirmed. Question number 3. Are the Doras coming back, and what's going to be the deal with Io and Bucky? So as we know, after the Dora Milaje beat up John Walker, Zemo escaped. He went through the hole in the bathroom tile. But Wakanda is not one to let Zemo go that easy, and the Dora Milaje and the War Dogs are just not going to let him wander free after they've only tried once to defeat him. So are the Doras still around? Is Io still around? And in what way could they come into play in helping Sam and Bucky get the shield from John Walker? Now that Walker has super soldier serum in his veins, and it's the new breed of super soldier that Wilfred Nagel has created, Bucky and Sam are going to need all the firepower they can get in helping to defeat him. Also, I feel like for Bucky to have a peaceful future in the MCU, for him to become the White Wolf again, he's going to need someone to bring him to Wakanda. He can't just show up there. So I'm hoping we see a team up here, and I'm hoping that Zemo doesn't get killed in the process. Question number 4, and a repeat from last week, is Sharon still in S.H.I.E.L.D.? To me, this is the number one question that hinges on what this story is going to mean moving forward, what the long-term implications of this show are going to have. Is Sharon still in S.H.I.E.L.D.? So we saw in episode 3 that she was talking to that woman who was dressed like a detective. She got in the car. She said, "We have a problem." It sounds like she was up to something bigger than just being an underground art dealer and having to deal with the power broker and the politics of Madripoor. But now she's got access to satellites somehow as well. So back to our hypothesizing in episode 3, is Sharon the power broker herself? Or is she a part of S.H.I.E.L.D. and she's using S.H.I.E.L.D. satellites because she's undercover and they're hoping that we don't notice that Sharon shouldn't have access to satellites? And a larger question, why isn't Sam curious that Sharon has access to satellites? I mean, in the information age and espionage and everything that goes on in the world's quest for interstellar dominance, particularly in the MCU, where aliens are real and Captain Marvel is just flying in and out of galaxies as she wishes, you would think that there'd be some tighter controls on who's able to send a satellite into space And I don't think that's really something that Sharon and whatever underground operation she has could get away with nonchalantly. So does this tie into a larger story? We had Jimmy Woo in WandaVision with his own version of a side agenda. Has someone in witness protection inside Westview. And now we have Sharon Carter acting shady in Madripoor doing her own thing. Are they both tasked, as I brought up last week, with checking in on mutants? Does Nick Fury have them out there recruiting to rebuild the Avengers with a new crop of supers? I don't know if we're going to get that answered in the last 2 episodes. They have to tie up the John Walker storyline. They have to dedicate time, assuming John Walker doesn't win this showdown and continue to be a villain in the future. They have to give time to transition Sam into Captain America. They have to tie up Sharon. They have to tie up Wakanda. They have to tie up what happens with Zemo. So I don't know if they introduce mutants here, but they've been circling the rim really hard here with a lot of mutants references over the last 12 episodes of Marvel Disney Plus television. And we're going to have to see a payoff eventually. So again, what is Sharon's purpose in Madripoor, and is she still working for S.H.I.E.L.D.? And question number 5. We've been circling this one for the last 3 episodes, but who is John Walker and what is his backstory in the comics? So in order, for Fandoms Assemble to truly be the #1 resource on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows, we can't just raise life's great questions. We got to answer a few of them ourselves. So sharpen your pencils. Crack open your textbooks. For your own safety, please do not touch Adora Milaje and join us for Fandom Academy Lesson 4, John Walker. As we talked about in prior episodes, John Walker has a long and twisted history in the Captain America Marvel comic books canon. We first meet John Walker in Captain America 323, released in November of 1986 as Super Patriot, a wrestler who, it turns out, was given his superpowers by the Power Broker. Now, while that story ran its course, he was eventually reimagined as a successor to Steve Rogers as Captain America when Steve retired in the Marvel Comics. So similarly to the storyline here in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we have John Walker taking over for Steve Rogers as the first new guy to wear the shield other than Steve. Eventually, Steve Rogers comes back to be Captain America, and John Walker morphs into the U.S. agent. The U.S. agent in the comic books wears almost the same exact costume with the A on his shoulder that John Walker is wearing as Captain America. But before Walker turns into U.S. agent, while he's still wearing the shield as Captain America, is where we first see things break down for him. And in Captain America 346 and 347 is where this storyline unfolds. The Commission on Superhero Affairs is starting to track John Walker's movements, and he's not doing things the way Steve Rogers did them. He's not being a Mjolnir-worthy superhero. To spare you some of the details how this unfolds, his actions come to a head when his former allies and now supervillains right-winger and left-winger expose his secret identity to the world, which leads to a group of terrorists called the Watchdogs to kill his parents. As a result of that action, Walker murders every single one of the Watchdogs and then goes and finds right-winger and left-winger and leaves them tied up next to a leaking oil tank with a lit match, and they get blown up. In response to Captain America murdering people, the Commission for Superhero Affairs, which I guess in the case of the MCU would be the government body that oversees the implementation of the Sokovia Accords, they attempt to fire John Walker, but an intervention by an unknown government agent leaves John Walker wearing the shield. In Captain America 350, the last of John Walker's run as Captain America, that mysterious figure is found out to be the Red Skull, who is attempting to weaponize John Walker as Captain America, drive him further and further into the dark to not only get rid of Red Skull's enemies for him, but also to discredit Captain America as a symbol of liberty and justice in the American way. In that storyline, things work out for John Walker. Steve Rogers comes back, and him and Sam show John the error of his ways and the manipulation that the Red Skull has had behind the scenes. And John Walker gives the shield back and becomes U.S. agent who joins the West Coast Avengers. And he teams up with the Avengers and the X-Men, etc., throughout the Infinity Saga and different things. And for the most part, remains a hero throughout his tenure in the comics. But wow, I mean, after chopping a Flag Smasher in half with the shield and doing it in an age where there was people with cell phones around, which wasn't around in the 80s when John Walker had killed the Watchdogs, I don't necessarily see things coming up aces for John Walker here in the MCU. The last comment I'll make on John Walker before I wrap this episode's Fandom Academy is I said that this dude at the end of episode 1 looked just like Joffrey Baratheon. And my, oh my, did that murder scene bring back strong Ned Stark execution vibes. I mean, this guy is just unhinged. And for that reason, I don't see them following the character arc of John Walker in the comics, but rather using him as a Joffrey Baratheon, the character we love to hate, to validate Sam Wilson in our eyes as the new Captain America. It could not be clearer from John Walker's actions that Sam Wilson is the right choice for Cap, validating Erskine's original premise that being a great man is more important than being a great soldier when it comes to taking the serum. While Bucky has made a 180-degree turn from where he was post the events of Winter Soldier, he's flawed. And Sam isn't, at least as far as the MCU wants us to follow. And post John Walker, it'll make all the sense in the world. I don't think anyone will question that Sam Wilson should be the one to take on the Captain America mantle. I'm sure it won't come peacefully, and we have John Walker's idiot self for taking the serum to thank for that. But for now, that'll do it for this week's episode of Fandom Academy. I hope you found that segment to be both informative and entertaining. And I hope it gave you a little more background on who we're dealing with John Walker here. He has a long, bloody history in the Marvel comic books universe. And like I said, I tried to put myself in John Walker's shoes, but the bottom line is, in the Marvel universe, he is a repeat offender, and he does not deserve to be Captain America. So I cannot wait for Sam to take the shield from him. And now here are some rapid-fire Easter eggs that you might have missed. Number 1, calling it the Patch Act. We talked about this in the episode breakdown, but I just want to reiterate again how excited I am that they referred to this as the Patch Act. There are X-Men Easter eggs all over this episode, all over the prior episode as well. And I hope that they're leading up for the Power Broker to be Wolverine, or at least to introduce him in some type of way here before we end Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They're eventually going to have to pay off all of the X-Men teases that they've been putting in these shows. Easter egg number 2, we see from Karli's text to Sam before they meet up at the end of the episode that the time it was sent was at 3:12. 3:12 being a reference to Captain America 3:12, where the Flag Smashers are first introduced. And then we have all the callbacks to previous movies. We have Sam telling John Walker that Karli's just a kid, which is a clear callback to Steve Rogers telling Tony Stark that Wanda was just a kid when he had her locked up prior to the events of Captain America Civil War. We also have payoffs to prior events in Bucky's past about his time in Wakanda, all the murders that took place as the Winter Soldier, including King T'Chaka's murder. As with Anytime Zemo's on the screen, we get a callback to Age of Ultron, where he discusses his son, who was tragically killed during those events, and how much he loved Turkish delights. And finally, the last callback to Steve Rogers in the final scene where John Walker is splitting the Flag Smasher in two with the shield. We get a callback to Civil War when Tony was fighting Bucky and Steve. Steve had Tony pinned to the ground, and when you think he's going for the head with the shield, he simply smashes it into the arc reactor because Captain America is not supposed to kill. And that'll do it for this episode's Rapid Fire Easter eggs that you might have missed. So in last week's episode, we had the first iteration of what I'll lovingly refer to as tinfoil hat time. I hope you all enjoyed that, and until you tell me otherwise, we're going to keep it going. So, for a few minutes here, please indulge me as I go through my crazy-ass theories of what's going to happen for the rest of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episodes 5 and 6, and how that will tie into the larger MCU. So clearly here, John Walker has gone full villain, which will leave Bucky and Sam no choice but to give him a beatdown at the beginning of the next episode and wrestle that shield from him. It just has to happen. There's no way that Bucky and Sam are going to be able to allow him to leave Lithuania until they get that shield off him. And I wouldn't be surprised if Walker gets fired in the next episode. I mean, he killed a foreign citizen in their home country. He's an agent of the United States government. He can't just go around and kill people for no reason, especially when he's going to kill people, a citizen, for no reason, in the middle of the village square with everyone having their phones out and recording him. Now, the question is, how is Walker going to react to this? He clearly had a psychotic break immediately after Lamar's death. Is he fully broken? Or was that a momentary lapse? Is he going to fight this like a regular conscious person? Or is he truly going to be full mad supervillain when Bucky and Sam approach him at the beginning of episode 5? Once they get the shield off him, I'll be interested to see on how the rest of the people in the world react. Now it's an Avenger back with the Captain America shield. What is the Power Broker going to do? The MCU movies dived into detail here about how it was really Tony Stark's coming out as a superhero that attracted all these different villains to start attacking the Earth. So given another opportunity to highlight America's superheroes, to highlight the Captain America character, is that going to inspire the Flag Smashers, the Power Broker, or some other supervillain to come out and show a grand show of force against that symbol? And I'm still hoping in episode 5 that we're going to see some semblance of what Sharon Carter's been doing this whole time. I'm waiting for I'm in S.H.I.E.L.D. reveal, and I'm tracking the X-Men, and I'm waiting for an X-Men reveal overall. Again, I hope that the Wolverine is the Power Broker here. But after spending so much time in Madripoor in the last couple episodes and focused around what's going on in Madripoor, I feel like we're going to have to pull back and refocus on getting the mantle passed back to Sam and wrapping up what the deal is going to be with Karli, which brings me to Karli Morgenthau. After her friend gets killed in cold blood by Captain America, she already wanted John Walker dead. Now, I questioned whether Karli was going to be able to have some sort of a rebirth here in the show as a good person, and she was going to get off because it turns out that the GRC is really evil. But I feel like we're not going to have time to get there before she's going to go full crazy and blow something up or start killing people again. Again, I keep likening her to Daenerys Targaryen. This is the inflection point where Dany is sitting there on top of Drogon watching Missandei get killed, and it was unclear whether she was going to be able to rein it back in and just take out the Lannisters and rule King's Landing peacefully, or whether she was going to go full fire and blood. And as soon as Missandei was killed, it was clear she was going straight downhill to fire and blood. So now what is Karli's version of that? We know that the Patch Act is going to be enacted by this government body. That means just like the Sokovia Accords, there's going to have to be a signing or some type of vote to enact the Patch Act. I'm assuming Karli's immediately going there to blow that up or to attack that in some way. Other characters that we need to tie up to before this show ends, not really have a clear landing on how they're going to do that. I think Zemo's going to get a quick 2 minutes where the Doras come back in and arrest him and take him away back to Wakanda or wherever they're bringing him. When it comes to Sarah and the boat, what's going to happen with Sarah? I'm hoping that Karli doesn't go after her for the death of her friend. Clearly, John Walker had nothing to do with Sam Wilson, and I'm sure it'll be made pretty clear at the beginning of the episode once Sam and Bucky take the shield off of John. So I hope Karli doesn't retaliate and head to New Orleans to kill Sarah and Sam's nephews. And then, how does the Power Broker get revealed? I think that a cool way to do it would be that the Power Broker is using the Patch Act as bait to get Karli to come out of hiding. If the Power Broker is somehow tied in with the GRC, this would be a prime opportunity for a big showdown between the Power Broker and then what's Sam going to do? Is Sam going to take out Karli because she's already killed someone earlier in the episode? Or are we going to get a Karli-Sam team up against the Power Broker once this unknown guy comes in and tries to kill her when it's clear that Sam really cares for her? So Just a quick recap on my crazy theories. I have John Walker getting his ass kicked by Sam and Bucky in the beginning of the episode and him going full psychopath afterwards. In the meantime, we're going to have Karli blow up something big, attack something big in this next episode in retaliation for her friend dying. Maybe we even see her go after John Walker and kill him in some public forum. That would really be a kick in the ass that they've built it up for us to hate this guy for so long, and then Karli kills him in some public way that the government's able to make him a martyr. And then we have some fairly quick resolutions to other characters' storylines, and I hope Sharon Carter comes out as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent recruiting mutants. I'm still waiting for the Wolverine Power Broker reveal. I also saw something crazy online where Sharon Carter might be Mystique from the X-Men. That would just blow my mind as well, as she's natively from Madripoor. But I need some sort of X-Men reference here, some open, overt direction towards mutants in episode 5 and 6 before they leave this story and move on to Loki and the future shows that are coming down the road. And that'll do it for this episode's Tinfoil Hat Time. Again, I really hope you guys are enjoying that segment, and I really hope you're enjoying the pod. And if you are, please subscribe, rate, and review on whatever your preferred podcast channel is. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are currently up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and really wherever else you'd go to listen to a podcast. Also, if you're enjoying the pod and you have a brother, a son, a father, a mother, a grandmother, a dog, a neighbor who enjoys the MCU, has been loving Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and wants to learn more, particularly in the areas of education, background, and theories about this show, it is your obligation to share the Fandoms Assemble podcast with them. And last but not least, for more Fandoms Assemble content, clips from this episode, and more news and notes coming from me, follow at FandomsPod, FANDOMSPOD, on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And as always, please join us next time, where we'll be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 5. Until then.